Today I am reading from the seventh book of the Left Behind series. The name of the book is called The Indwelling, and I am reading chapter 9 today. And I'll begin to read now. 7 hours later, David hated getting so little time with Annie, but he knew their exile was fast approaching. Then, if they could pull it off, they would be together as much as they wanted and probably a long, long way from Babylon. What an incredible, beautiful city New Babylon would have been under other circumstances. Carpathia had employed the best architects and landscapers and designers and decorators, and except for the absence of any God-honoring works of arts, the place looked magnificent, particularly at night. Great colored spotlights accented the massive crystalline buildings. Only since the recent decimation of another huge percentage of the population and the resulting personnel shortages had the place begun to evidence the lack. It took longer for refuse removal or for lights to be repaired, yet still the skyline was stunning, a man-made marvel. As dusk crept over the horizon, David sat listening to Fortunato, Hickman, and Moon through the bug in Carpathia's office. He couldn't tell whether Leon was actually in Nikolai's chair, but it sure sounded like it. They were watching the videos that had been brought back from the gala. David sat with his head in his hands, using earphones to be sure to catch every detail. He wished he could see the videos, but that was not his call. They played and replayed clips that included the gunshot. See, Moon said, he's right down there, stage right, about 3 or 4 deep. There, see? Pause. I see it, Walter, Leon said. Good thing we've got fingerprints. I would not have been able to tell who that was in a million years. Good get-up, Hickman said, the gray hair sticking out of the turban. Nice touch. Robes. I would have thought he was an Arab. Some kind of raghead, anyway. They all chuckled. Rayford Steele, Leon said softly. Who'd have believed that? Wouldn't murder be against his religion? Laughter, silence, then, I don't know. It was Hickman. Maybe he convinces himself it's a holy war. Then I guess everything goes. Fact is, Moon said, he missed. You look closer, Hickman said. And he had a better shot earlier. He fires then. He's our guy. But I don't think he even meant to shoot when he did. What are you talking about? Look, slow motion. Well, back it up a second first. Look, right there. Somebody bumps him. A little person, a woman. Can you zoom? I don't know how to run these crazy machines, Leon said. We ought to get Hasid in here. You want me to call him? Maybe. Just a minute. Here, okay? Slow and zoomed. What do you see? There. Hickman said again. She trips, loses her balance or something. Huh, who's that look like? Wally, who's that remind you of? Nah. No, come on, who am I thinking of? I know who you're thinking of, but we've got her eyeballed in North America. Probably trying to get to her sister's funeral. She doesn't know it was a month ago. They chuckled again, and David picked up the phone. Rayford, he said, maybe Hattie's not on her way to the safe house yet. GC's tracked her out west, trying to make her sister's funeral. That's a relief. Maybe we're okay for a while. Don't get overconfident. I uploaded a whole bunch of stuff to Chloe's computer so you can see your new digs, if you need them. Where are you? Well, I was about to put down at Palwaki when I heard from Leah. I'd been having trouble reaching T to see if he could go get her in Kankakee, southeast of here. She never got him either, so I'm on my way to get her. We'll come back here and use Buck's car to see if we can get to the safe house. Call Tyson first. Last time I talked to him, he said he thought he heard car noises. That's not good. Tell me about it, David said. Hey, Leah might need a new alias. Yeah, why? She's been asking around about Hattie using that Clendonin name. They might try to follow her to Hattie. They're already on to Hattie. They don't need Leah. Whatever you say, Rayford. Just a thought. I appreciate it. You'd better be careful. They're going to try to pin this on you. David told him of the autopsy and evidence investigation. So I missed, just like you thought. Looks pretty sure at this point. Then how can they pin it on me? What? They're obligated to the truth. If you didn't do it, someone on the platform did. My money's on one of 3 insurgent kings, Rayford said. Probably Litwala. Even if you're right, you're a less embarrassing assassin than somebody behind Nikolai. I'll bet you're the scapegoat. Buck had sat with Morris Chaim Rosenzweig the whole day. The old man had alternately slept and wept, threatening suicide. Buck wanted to go out and find them something to eat, but he didn't dare leave Chaim. The drunk came back to toss a bundle of used clothes up to the window, but he wasn't interested in more money to find food. Once he had his 50, he was gone. Buck called the desk. Anybody down there that could bring us some food for a fee? What, you think we got room service? Just tell me if you know anybody who wants to make a few nicks. Yeah, okay. When the concierge gets off his break, I'll send him up. You'll recognize him by his tuxedo. Amazingly, 10 minutes later, somebody knocked tentatively. Buck wished he had a gun. Who is it? I'll get you food, a man said. How much? 10. Deal. Buck sent him out for local fare. It was all he could do to get Chaim to eat a few bites. Presently, David called. Is it true, he asked, about Chaim? Buck was stunned. What about him? That he's dead, burned up at his house, home along with his whole staff? You know that's not true, David. Hasn't anyone told you I'm with him? I'm just telling you what's on television. So that's how they're going to spin it. Hero statesman dies in a fire. That keeps him out of the conspiracy. They've convinced one of the 3 insurgents did it, David said, but that would be bad for morale. What's Chaim's theory? He was right there. We need to talk about this later, David. I need to get him out of here. How? I finally got hold of T. He's bringing this Super J. I directed him to a blocked off road. We have to be there when he puts down so he can be in the air again before anyone's wiser. We'll have to stop in Greece for fuel, though. Wouldn't want to risk it over here. Tyson was alarmed. Chloe was proposing madness. Can I trust you with Kenny, she said, that you won't fall asleep? I would give my life for that child, you know that. But you must not go. This is foolishness. Tyson, I can't sit here doing nothing. I have informed everybody in the co-op generally what's going on, but that's little I can do until the buying-selling restrictions are sanctioned. Don't keep me from doing something worthwhile. I am not your superior, Chloe. I could not deprive you of anything. I'm just urging you to think this through. Why must you go, and why must it be now? Cameron's car is at the airport. If you take the Suburban, you leave me with no vehicle. You have nowhere to go, Tyson. You can't outrun the GC anyway. Your best bet is to stay right here, listen to them, turn the power off if you hear them, and become invisible. Tyson threw up his arms. I cannot dissuade you, so do what you are going to do, but don't be long. Thank you, and promise me you will do anything but let Kenny fall into GC hands. I would die first. I want him to die first. That I will not do. You would let them take him over my body. But don't you see, Tyson, that's how it will be. You'll be a martyr, but you will still have lost Kenny to the enemy. You're right. You'd better stay here. Nice try. This is not a smart thing to do in broad daylight. I'll be careful. Too late. You're already being reckless. Goodbye, Tyson. What do you make of this? Hickman was saying as David listened in. Ramblings, Leon said. Hallucinations. Gibberish. Not uncommon in such a situation. But first he said, That about thinking he had done all you asked. What was that about? Nikolai was not addressing me. I have never, would never, could never ask him to do anything. Anyway, if he was talking to me, it would indicate that he thought I had attacked him. But then what is his obsession with what does he call it? The veil or the veil. What? Listen to what he says. David pressed both earphones close and listened carefully. After Carpathia's first lament, who echoed through the sound system, the PA system appeared to have failed, but his next words were picked up through the video disc machine mic. The veil, Carpathia rasped. Was it rent in Taiwan from the top to the bottom? Carpathia struggled to make himself understood. Father, he managed. Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. David shuddered. The exchange reminded him of something he and Mac had heard from the morgue. He called Mac. What was it? Dr. Eikenberry said about reports of Nikolai's last words. Just that it would have been impossible. That's what I thought. Once she got in there and saw the damage, she said he wouldn't have been able to speak, right? Exactly. David recued the recording and found it. Well, Dr. Eikenberry said, this gives the lie to the last words business, doesn't it? It sure does, Pacher said, unless he could speak supernaturally. He and the doctor and Kirsten laughed. This man could not have said a word, Dr. Eikenberry concluded. Maybe they want to invent something for posterity, but no one had better ask me if it was possible. A few minutes after 9 in the morning, Central Standard Time, Rayford put the Gulfstream down in Kankakee. He had told Leah to watch for a smallish jet and to be ready to board quickly, but as he taxied by the terminal, he saw her sleeping in a chair by the window. He left the jet winding on the tarmac, knowing how conspicuous that would look to ground control, and sprinted into the terminal. Donna, he said as he approached. Donna Clendondon. Clendondon. She jumped and squinted at him. Do I know you? She said, clearly terrified. Mary Berry, he said, grabbing her bag. We've got to go. Hi, Marv, she whispered. You've got to tell a girl when you get a makeover. Rayford heard some kind of warning through the PA system, and a couple of orange-vested officials started his way. He ignored them and was airborne quickly, certain that Kankakee had no GC pursuit craft and little interest in a small jet flyer who had boorishly violated their protocols. He told Leah, all I get out of Milwaukee is a tower guy who says T is not there and won't be back until tomorrow, and that he's not at liberty to say where he went. I got the same. What do you make of it? I don't know. Wish there was someone in his church I could ask, but T and I have never needed to communicate through third parties. He's usually reachable by cell. He's always wanted to be in the action, and I need someone to go and ferry Buck and Chame over here. I'm tempted to call Albie and see if he can find someone. Now there's a name I haven't heard, Leah said. Albie, long story, good guy. So tell me, not until you and I clear up a few things. Until you do, you mean, she said, until you do. Rayford told her what had happened to him in Israel on the flight to Greece and in Greece. I know that sounds a little too convenient, he said, and I wouldn't blame you if you thought I just made it up. Made it up, she said, obviously emotional. If you made that up, you'd burn in hell. So will you be the first to forgive me? Of course, and I need to apologize too. You've done nothing close to what I did, Rayford said. Forget it. Don't brush me off, Rayford. I feel awful about how I've responded to you. Fair enough. We're even. Don't be flippant. I'm not. You can imagine how I feel about... I'm not saying I was terrible as you, she said wryly. David responded to an announcement that all GC management personnel from director level and above were to report immediately to the small theater in the education wing. What now? As dozens crowded into the room, Fortunato stood at the lectern like a professor. Quickly now, quickly, please. Find your seats. I've been informed that more than 1 million people are in New Babylon already, with probably at least 2 million more to come. Our social services are being taxied to their limits, and these people have no outlet for their grief. I want to know if there's any reason we cannot put the body of the potent in position even this evening and begin the procession past the bier. We're estimating that not half the mourners will stay for the burial, which may have to be postponed as well. Do we have adequate lighting? Someone shouted yes. And concessions? Stations with water, food, medical services? Could be in place within an hour, someone said. Good. The bier itself and its pedestal? Pedestal is finished and waiting. The bier is finished per specifications. Really, Fortunato said. I was told there was some question whether it could be vacuum sealed. Solved with a little help. Once the body is placed inside, the air can be quickly removed and the hole secured. The stopper is a hard rubber compound that will be screwed into the plexiglass. Thank you. We can skip the details. The entire container is transparent. Yes, sir. And on the pedestal, it will sit nearly 15 feet off the ground. Yet the mourners will have access via stairs leading up one side and down the other. They will, of course, be unable to touch the glass, as they will be separated from it by approximately 5 feet with velvet robes and armed security. Thank you, Fortunato said. Now there are certain details I would like us all to hear, except those of you who need to supervise construction of the restoring stations. You may be excused now, and let's shoot for an 8 p.m. start time. Let's get the word out to the people so they can begin assembling. Yes, Mr. Blogg. Guy had been waving and now stood. I'm afraid my statue will not be ready until dawn, as originally planned. We're making progress, and I believe it will be stunning, but even the initial goal was nearly impossible. No problem. You may go now, too, and we'll all look forward to your handiwork. As Guy rushed from the room, Leon called upon Dr. Eikenberry to come to the microphone. It has been her difficult duty to prepare for burial the body of our beloved leader. As she is a loyal citizen of the global community and was a great admirer of the potent, you can imagine what an emotional task this was. I have asked her to report on her findings and summarize the challenges she faced to allow the mourners to have one last encounter with His Excellency in a dignified and memorial as manner as possible under the circumstances. Dr. Eikenberry had lost the severe look David had seen when he first met her. Her white coat was gone, and she seemed to have applied fresh makeup and had her hair do soften. He wondered when she had had time for that. Thank you, Supreme Commander, she began. This has indeed been a most difficult and emotional day for me and my assistants, Peter Berger and Kirsten Schlotzen. We treated the body of Nicole Carpathia with utmost reverence and respect. As expected, the cause of death was severe brain trauma caused by a single bullet from a Saber handgun. The projectile entered the potent's body just below the nape of his neck in the posterior and the back, and exited through the top of the crane, through the top of his head. The particularly devastating power of this type of projectile destroyed 2 vertebrae, severed the spinal cord, obliterated the brainstem and posterior of the brain, and left residual damage to the carotid artery and much of the soft tissue in the throat. Because of the spinning bullet, the back of the neck and head were laid open, causing the greatest challenge for repair and reconstruction. Without getting into the details, the gaping wound had been stapled and stitched, camouflaged with wax and putty and coloring, and a minimum of artificial hair. If the result contributes to an appropriate farewell to the greatest leader of the world has ever known, I am grateful and consider it a privilege to have served the global community this way. Amid tears and sustained applause, Dr. Eikenberry began to leave, then returned to the podium with an index finger raised. If I may add one thing, she said, There is recorded evidence that His Excellency's last words were an expression of forgiveness to the perpetrator of this heinous crime. Forgiveness has long been ascribed to the divine, and as a medical professional, I must tell you why I concur with this assessment. Besides the sentiment of those last words, I can tell you that there's no human explanation for the potent's ability to speak at all, given the physical damage. Truly, this was a righteous man. Truly, this was the Son of God. At Pewaukee, Rayford tried in person to get more information out of the tower fill-in. I'm sorry, sir, the man said, but not only am I not at liberty to tell you, I couldn't if I wanted to. He didn't tell me where he was going, but only when he expected to return. Do you know who I am? No, sir. You haven't seen me around here. Don't know I'm a friend of T's. The man squinted at Rayford, and Leah cleared her throat. He may not recognize you. Rayford couldn't believe his own stupidity. Listen, son, I have permission to take an associate's vehicle, but he neglected to leave the keys with me. I need to know you won't feel obligated to phone any authorities if I were to hotwire the car. The man's look was not as reassuring as his words. I won't even be looking your direction. He doesn't trust you, Leah said as they strode to the Land Rover. Why should he? I wouldn't either. See, even forgiveness sin has its consequences. Do we have to spiritualize everything? Leah said, but Rayford could tell she was bemused. Once they were on the road, she said, We're not going straight to the safe house in broad daylight, are we? Of course not. We have a stop first. He drove to Des Plaines and the one-pump gas station run by Zeke and Zeke Jr. Zeke emerged quickly, but hesitated when he saw Rayford. He looked past him to Leah. I recognize the vehicle, he said, but not the occupants. It's me, Zeke, and this is Leah. That wasn't Zeke's handiwork, was it? Hers was. Huh, not bad. Yours either. Need auto work? Yep. Zeke ignored the pump and opened the ancient garage door. Rayford pulled in, and he and Leah got out so Zeke could raise the car on the rack. Then the three of them took a hidden staircase to the basement, where Zeke Jr. looked up expectantly. Sup, he said. You know me, Rayford said. Not till you spoke, but I would have got it. What do you need? New ID for her. Zeke Jr. stood, rolls of fat jiggling under his black vest and shirt. Jerry Seaver, he said. Excuse me? How's Jerry Seaver sound? How does she look? Leah said. Zeke grabbed a file. Like this. You're a genius, she said. The blonde was roughly her age, height, and weight. I don't know how you do it. Lots more to choose from these days, he said shyly. He directed her to a sink and gave her the chemicals necessary to make her a blonde. She and Rayford drove off 2 hours later with foodstuffs, a full tank, and Leah in a scarf over wet, freshly bleached hair. Her dental appliance had been changed and had the color of her contacts in her purse with a wallet with documents to match. I'm going to take the northern route, Rayford said. That'll give us a good look at any other traffic. Unless they're hidden. Not too many places to do that, he said. Shall we wait till dark, too? You're asking me? We both live or die by the decision, he said. That helps. He phoned the safe house. Tyson answered. She's where? Tell me she's not. Oh, Tyson, what about the radiation? Tyson told him what David had told them about the radiation. Rayford pulled over and covered the mouthpiece. We're waiting till dark, he said, popping a U-turn. Where to then? Chicago, and watch our backs in case you were right about Tower Boy. Rayford phoned Chloe and eschewed any pleasantries. Where are you? He said. Palos area, she said. I'm guessing where the tri-state used to intersect Harlem. 95th Street? Uh-huh. What now? You're going to the rest of the way on foot? I may have to. That'll take hours. What else have I got to do, Dad? At least wait for us. You're more likely to give us away than Hattie is. We've got Both vehicles out in the daytime. On foot, you'll stick out like a sore thumb. We're as exposed as we've ever been. Just tell her what to do, Rayford, Leah said. You're back in charge, remember? What? Chloe said. Rayford covered the phone. She's a married adult, Leah, not my little girl anymore. But she's subordinate to you in the tribulation force. Do what you have to do. Chloe, yes? Stay put until we can find you. We're not doing this thing until after dark. And that's the end of chapter 9. Next, I'll be reading chapter 10. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.